Yo, what's going on with YouTube? What's going on, Celtics Nation? As usual, I'm your boy Adam Taylor. You can find me over at CelticsBlog.com, heavy.com, Odds Checker US, and anywhere that Celtics content lives online. And here I am, joined with my boy, Mr. Tim Shields. Find him over at CelticsBlog.com, CLNSmedia.com, and Twitter. We're gonna have to remove that YouTube one, Tim, because we never push you to it. That's more of a personal one.
You mean my Insta? I gotta get rid of my Insta
That's
off
the
here.
one.
That's
It's 11
personal.
p.m. here, man. I'm tired, dude. I'm tired. So today, everybody, we're going to be jumping in and looking at potential trade targets for the wing position, specifically shooters on the wing. We're going to do a different video where we look at multi-skilled wings, guys that can do a bit of playmaking, or maybe they're a 3-and-D guy. But for this episode, it's strictly guys that are going to improve the team's shooting either off the bench or in the starting five that play either the guard position, the small forward, and I'm going to include power forward here too, because I'll kind of go guards, wings, bigs. And if you want to put your forwards in with the bigs, fine. You want to put them in with the wings, fine. Personally, I think that small forwards slide up to the four a bunch these days, and you see five slide down less. So I kind of put that four in the wing position myself. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. Before we go any further, make sure to hit that like button, that subscribe button, and leave a nice comment. Most importantly, share the channel. We want to grow. We want to be able to do this more and more. And we want you and everybody else to enjoy it. And the more you let us know you enjoyed it, the more we know to keep going with this type of discussion. Obviously, once the trade deadline's over, we're going to have to pivot to a little bit more of an analytical focus. But until then, let's roll. Tim, what's going on, bro?
Nothing much. Obviously, the trade deadline is rapidly approaching, and we've covered a couple different topics.
Rapido.
Rapidamente. So right now, we kind of are just going to be talking about some shooters, specifically guys who just score. Right now, in my opinion,
Bang. Get them fingers
smooth.
pointing at the rim. Boom.
But I wrote an article for
Looks like
Celtics
it,
blog talking about what the Celtics need, whether it be either playmaking or shooting. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. Concerning the Celtics, though, in my mind, I think they're going to be needing some shooting. So we're here to talk about a couple different shooters. And first off is, so to start it off, someone that I know that you are pretty lukewarm on, and by lukewarm, I'm being very generous, Buddy Hield of the Sacramento Kings.
That's the Buddy Hill music.
Yeah, he's got intro music now.
He's got intro music.
Is he a WWE?
Yeah, dude. No, look, at the start of the year, if you told me Buddy Hield was a trade option, I would have been livid. I'm like, the defense that he gives you just isn't there. It's like trading for Hield as a guy that's going to be able to help you as more than just a movement shooter and spot up shooter isn't really going to work out well. But watching the team throughout the season, I think they might have moved up in the rankings for 3-point percentage from last time I saw them. Last time I saw them, they were down in 24th, but again, they've just absolutely annihilated the Wizards. So maybe they've moved up a spot or two, but the team definitely needs shooting. Buddy Hield is one of the elite 3-point shooters off the catch, off movement. He can peel off screens and pull up. He can lift out of corners, catch and shoot. He can sink, catch and shoot. He's a good cutter. I think offensively, he gives you a bit of firepower. Now, the thing is, whenever you're talking about straight up shooters, the fact is they're a single skill player. And single skill players hold value in the regular season, but they become far less valuable during the postseason. Of course, people will point at like Duncan Robinson and be like, Duncan Robinson's valuable whenever. Yeah, but Duncan Robinson is the elite of the elite. Kyle Korver left the league. Duncan Robinson came in like, yo, that's my spot. You know what I mean? He became the Sheldon of the NBA. He's like, that's my spot. If Big Bang Theory reference, if anyone likes it. I'm not huge on Hield, but I think that he brings a skill that the Celtics are sorely lacking. I think he'd be available. I'm not too bad about it. I'm like, I'd be okay with it depending on who was going out, evidently,
Yeah, and I think that gets really where it gets kind of sticky because the Celtics cap situation is funky. They don't have a lot of those contracts that are movable. A big storyline, obviously, by the time this episode is coming out, Marcus Smart will be available to trade. And a lot of people have kind of been shaky about that. Apparently, the Dallas Mavericks have some interest in Marcus Smart as well right now. So something to consider for food for thought. But considering Hield's contract, 3 years right now, it's a 23 mil cap hit. So that's kind of a big chunk of change. So if you're trying to match that, you're talking about cobbling together a couple different deals. If you're the Kings, you're probably trying to get into the tank even further. I don't think they're making a playoff push no matter what they say. They just need to get into the tank and just stink into another pick. So
Kings are gonna king, man.
Kang's gonna Kangs, but if they're gonna do that, then maybe you can sell them on a couple young guys. But again, you still need to cobble a bunch together because you have to match 23 mil. So unless you're getting a third team involved, you're looking probably at shilling out a guy like Josh Richardson, maybe Romeo Langford plus Aaron Neesmith, just to make that money match. So it kind of gets tricky. If you're Boston, maybe you do it. Maybe you try and see if there's a shooter that is good or on the same tier as Buddy Hield that fits into that trade exception. Or if you are going to take that kind of swing and have to cobble a bunch of contracts together, you get a guy who does a little bit of everything pretty good as opposed to one thing really good.
So my downside with paying someone like Hill 20 plus million a year is you have a supposedly elite shooter on your bench earning a rookie scale contract in Neesmith, right? And I don't know if anybody else reads Steve Bulpett, but he recently put a piece out on heavy.com, repping heavy. The one segment, I'll just read it out verbatim. When it was suggested in a heavy.com discussion with a league exec that Neesmith might be a reasonable facsimile of Miami marksman Duncan Robinson if given the same opportunity, the executive said that's one reason Eric Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in the league and Taylor Jenkins of the Memphis Grizzlies. They look at what players can become. So that was kind of taking a little bit of a dig, I felt, at Ime Udoka, saying you're leaning. And obviously, it goes on then to say that Udoka, like most first-time head coaches, is leaning on the veterans. And as Udoka goes through his coaching career, he'll become better at trusting some of the young guys. But that, to me, kind of, I read between the lines there of, hey, Neesmith could be that guy if you gave him the opportunity, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I get it. The Celtics need shooting right now. The way they played against the Wizards, the way that we've seen them play on occasion this season tells us that they're a piece or two away from being a genuine contender in the East. The other side of things are, why would you want to pay 20 plus million for a single skill wing that can shoot when you have Neesmith that has already proven to be a multi-skilled wing, at least a 3-and-D? You've seen, but the thing is, I've seen Neesmith drive to the rim. I've seen him attack closeouts. I've seen him jump passing lanes. I've seen him block shots, pull boards. I feel like there's other shooters on this discussion board that me and you were going to speak of in a minute that I feel like would be more beneficial to the Celtics. And it's Hield's contract that's the biggest drawback for me. When you've got somebody that's projected to be similar, if not better than him, that's on a rookie scale deal. I just think you're kind of like trying to reinvent the wheel with no reason to. You've just got to trust one of the young guys that came into the league known as the best shooter in his draft class.
Yeah, and I also think that Grizzlies quote, talking about the Memphis coach getting the most out of his guys,
Mm-hmm.
that is most definitely 100% a dig about Desmond Bane because they've gotten the absolute best out of that kid. He's an
Yeah, but
absolute
like Bane
stunning
was never
shooter.
Boston's, right? Like that deal was agreed before. It's not like that deal
Yeah,
was
but
agreed beforehand. I get it. Like Boston fans are, but I'm
yeah,
kind of just like, yo, it happened. It wasn't really like
rip the
Bane was
Band-Aid
ever.
off.
It's not like Bane was ever a Celtic anyway. He could have
Yeah.
been, but he wasn't. That's like saying, hey, we had a pick that, like, in the last
It
draft
could
or
have been
before we trade.
Giannis.
It could have been, oh, in the last draft, I really wanted the Celtics to move up for Josh Giddey, who's turning out to be a very, very high level playmaker already. I'm not sitting here like, oh, well, they should have gone after Giddy. I'm telling you, Giddy was ours and we let it go. Because these things happen when people are like, oh, we could have traded for so and so, we could have drafted, but we didn't. So unless we're going to play Marvel's What If, it's not, you know what I mean? It's not happening. But personally, for me, I'm just like, there's other shooters on this list that we're about to discuss that I feel fit the team better. And if you just want a straight up marksman that can score off movement, can score off the catch, then you need to be giving them at least give Neesmith till the end of the season to show whether it's him or not. Because if it is, you're going to save yourself a whole chunk of change.
Yeah, bingo. Especially with that Buddy Hield contract. I think that just
Financial
makes a lot of
flexibility,
sense.
dude.
Yeah, they preach it. It's time to practice it. So another one of the targets, a guy that I know, in fact, that you love, Norman Powell. This is like a nice whoa. It just sets the mood. Norman Powell, everybody. Norman Powell.
Just so
Norman
everyone knows,
Powell.
we use StreamYard and they've just added on his background music. We can't upload our own, but they have gave us a few to use, and I'm going to utilize them to the best of my ability.
We gotta
So
find the timing.
yeah, we're gonna, it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress, but we get to do a little dance. Everyone's happy. I'm a big, big Norman Powell guy in terms of what he brings to this team. I think that what a lot of people think when they see Norman Powell is catch and shoot guy. But if you kind of peel the layer of his numbers, then you'll see that he can attack closeouts. He's a bit of a mid-range assassin as well as he is from three. And if you've watched any Chicago Bulls this year, you'll see that the mid-range is still well and truly alive if you can generate reliable shooting space, whether that be off Iverson cuts, whether that be off secondary screens or screen-to-screener actions. If you can create valuable space to get a good mid-range shot up, and you have a consistent mid-range shooter, then you can find that you're going to get a reliable points production out of that guy. Norman Powell is one of those guys, specifically from the long mid range, which is anywhere from the free throw line extended back out to the free, which tells me he's a very highly talented player at attacking closeouts, taking one or two dribbles to step inside and then firing away from deep. I think Powell's also quite reliable in terms of similar to Buddy Hield, you can run him over screens, you can run him lifting or sinking into corners, you can run him as a Spain pick and roll pop guy, whatever you need to do, Powell can kind of fit in there. But I think he has a bit more of a defensive chop to him than what Buddy Hield does. And I also think he hasn't been as widely disregarded as a complete and a negative once you hit the postseason. And it's not like we've got a huge sample size of Buddy in the postseason because guess what? Buddy's teams don't seem to make the postseason. What does that tell you? The Kings suck. That's what that tells you.
I was gonna say also the Pelicans are going through it as well, but that is a story for another day. I think if you're talking about a guy that will probably be available depending on how the entire Dame Lillard situation kind of starts to play out, if Norm Powell is available, you should jump on that. The biggest thing, and this is always going to come back to it for me, money. Money, money, money. 15.5 mil for a cap hit right now. So that cap hit fits perfectly into that trade exception that you created when you signed and traded Evan Fournier away to the New York Knicks in the offseason. So that it fits perfectly into that TPE. And you have a couple other ones that you can utilize in the meantime. But point being, this is a guy that you can add to your roster without having to take any money or send any money out if you don't want to. Now, if you are the Portland Trailblazers, maybe you're asking for draft capital. Maybe you're asking for a young guy that you can start playing. Perhaps a combination of a guy like Peyton Pritchard, because he is, an Oregon native, played for the Oregon Ducks when he was in college. That's his home turf. Or maybe you're looking at a guy like Romeo Langford. Or maybe you're just trying to add a couple vets, maybe add another vet that will be useful once Dame Lillard is healthy, and you're trying to make that push to keep him there. Maybe you're looking at adding a guy like Josh Richardson. So, in my opinion, you could do a whole lot worse than Norm Powell. And the big thing with his money is he's wrapped up for 5, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more years. So, in summation, I think you should go for Norman Powell. I think it's a solid addition. He's got some size, 6'3". He's 28, so he's not super old. He's not over the age of 30. And for shooters, his game should age nicely.
I like Norman Powell. I think that, if you've got him tied down for a long-term deal, he's still young enough that he'll have some trade value in a year or two if it doesn't work out. I wanted to pull this up for Powell. I didn't want to do it for Buddy Hield because I like Powell more. So these are Powell's these are Powell's shooting splits. Minus garbage time. They're coming from cleaningtheglass.com. It's a subscription website, super reasonably priced, and to me, it's one of the better websites for your stat dives. So what we can see here is where his shots are coming from: the rim, the short mid, the long mid, all mid range, corner free, non-corner free, all free. Consistently, for the majority of his career, there's been a few years, like his sophomore season and his third year were trash from deep. Then he pulled it back. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the 5th season where he's been an above 40% shooter. In the corner, he's hovered around 50% over the last 2 seasons. He's at 43% this year. Here's where I'm looking at the long mid range where he's stepping into those to beat closeouts. And we've also got some short mid range. So that's anywhere outside of 4 feet from the basket all the way up to the free throw line. I'd assume those were coming off like 45 cuts from the wings and then picking and popping down low, maybe coming off a low post dribble handoff with Nurkic or whatever it may be. And the one that we've got here is your effective field goal percentage. Anything in dark orange is really, really good. Anything in medium orange is good. Anything in light blue is kind of bad. Anything in dark blue is very bad. I like to say the simplest. There's a lot of orange, not a lot of blue. I don't want to go into super deep dives here. That's what my articles are for. There's a lot of orange. Let's feel happy about it. As a defensive piece, I think he's got a bit of size to him. He's 6'4". He's got a decent wingspan, moves his feet well. Is he going to be a lockdown defender? No. Do you need him to be? No. But he's not what I would class as a single skill wing. He's not exactly a multi-skilled wing, but he's passable on defense, and that's an upgrade from Buddy Hield on a more reasonable contract, and you're going to get very similar shooting production, except maybe you're going to get a better shot profile from Norman Powell. I also think that you probably, if the Kings are intent on trying to snap this like million year since the dinosaurs roamed the earth, since the dinosaurs roamed the earth, playoff kind of abstinence, then they're not going to be wanting to move on from Hield. Whereas for me, the Trailblazers are one bad press conference away from a crisis. So I think Norman, that's how I feel. I'm like, how are you guys? You guys are built on a house of cards. I'm just waiting for someone to blow so it starts to fall. And I'd be far happier with Norman Powell for the next 3, 4, 5 years than I would do with Buddy Hield for the next 3, 4, 5 minutes. So that's where I'm at there. I still think Hield's a great player. I still think his shooting form's fantastic. He's an elite 3-point shooter. But if you can get a guy like Powell, then you should realistically be trying to get Powell. And the last guy we've got on our list, let me go back to my music. Who you got? Who you got?
So this is a guy I wanted the Celtics to pursue for quite a bit of time. When he originally got traded, I thought that they were going to try and get into the fray, but that was not the case. And I am talking about Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard is it's like the Macarena music. He's a sharpshooter from deep. If you look at his shot plot, it's pretty crazy. He's all in the green from beyond the arc. This is a guy who is um, not quite what you think in terms of age. He does have polish. He's 25 years old. He fits your window. And the most important part is he's one, locked up long term, and two, he's got an even smaller cap hit than Norman Powell. Right now, it's slated for 13.3 mil. That's what it is for this year. So, in my opinion, I think he could do a lot worse. I know that you were talking a little bit about his playmaking ability. I personally just know him as a lights out shooter when you get him going.
Why do you know him as a lights out shooter when you get him going?
Because I see him cook the Celtics every single time he plays them.
There's the answer. So this is his play. This is Luke Kennard's playmaking numbers. So you've got his assist percentage. Whenever this season, when he's on the floor, he's assisting on 10.5% of his team's made shots. His assist to usage ratio, I like to lean on this. If you want the formula, you're going to have to find it because I'm really not about to explain it deeply. Best thing to understand is how often does he assist the ball compared to how often the ball's in his hands. So if someone like Dennis Schroeder has the ball in their hands a bunch but doesn't really assist at the rate that his usage rate dictates, they're going to have a low assist to usage ratio. So we can see that per 100 possessions, you're probably going to get 15 of those possessions where Luke Kennard is either initiating or finishing an offensive possession. And he's assisting on them 10.5% of the time, gives you a 0.69 assist to usage ratio. That, to me, for a guy that's most likely going to be a bench piece, we'll leave this up a sec. He's also only turning the ball over 9 times. Let's round it up, 9 times per 100 possessions. That's solid, especially for the Clippers that are without their 2-star wings at the moment and are heavily relying on Kennard. I think for a wing that's not going to cost you too much, and one of the reasons I always looked at the Clippers trading for Kennard, and I've said this on a multiple podcasts at this point when we spoke about this guy recently, was they wanted some additional playmaking off the bench. That they needed somebody that could come in, could create a pick and roll, could get his own shot, could get shot for others, and would still have enough scoring gravity to be able to keep the floor stretched out. So the playmaking aspect to me is important. I know we're focusing on shooting wings though, so let me just go and pull up his shooting numbers. I do think though, one of the most important things to remember is if your wing can create for others, he's going to open up a bit more shooting space simply because of the fact that teams have to allow for the pass. They have to try and take away the passing lane as much as they do the shot itself. And sometimes that puts players in a really difficult position of deciding whether they need to sag, whether they need to push up. And especially like if you've forced a switch, is somebody going to come and tag the roll man? Are they going to try and front the post? If the roll man's in the post, did the tier the catch? You just put a team in an absolute bind. And then we've got his shooting. Here we've got him shooting 43% from three, 42% from non-corners, wing, slot above the break, 45% from the corners. He's not really doing too well from the mid, but 38% is reasonable. He's stepping in, he's hitting those shots when he's attacking closeouts. And in the short mid range where he's getting to work, I like to call that the floater area. So we can assume that he's got a nice, solid, reliable floater, and his rim finishing is not that great, but maybe he's not getting to the rim very often. Let me just have a look. He's only took 25 rim attempts all season, so let's not really care about what's going on at the rim. These minutes are non-garbage time minutes, so if he's out there in garbage time, whether the team are getting blown out or whether they're blowing somebody out, that's not being factored in here because it's not, as cleaning the glass would look at it, it's not important numbers. It's not going to tell you that much. You're a lot more trigger happy when you're losing by 30 or winning by 30. So I think Kennard is probably the more well-rounded choice of the three. Personally, I still think that Powell is better because Powell's a better defender. But if you are looking for somebody that's cheap, that can come in, handle the rock a little bit, create for themselves, create for others, find their own shot, going to be reliable from deep, reliable from the mid-range, Kennard will not do you wrong. I just like Powell that little bit more just because of that additional defense that he gives you. And it's not much. I'm not saying he's a defensive juggernaut or anything. I'm just saying he gives you some form of defense.
Yeah. And that actually rounds us out for today. Though we're going to have a future episode looking at some other skill sets. But you want to see us out?
Yes. Yes, I do. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you've enjoyed this show, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment. Make sure to share it with your peoples. Make sure to tell everyone to check out your vitamin C's for your regular dose of Celtics content. It's late. Please forgive the word slippages. Tim, thank you for joining me.
Of course, man.
Real quick, list them off, top to bottom. Who do you want first? Powell, Healed, or Kennard?
I think it's Kennard, Powell, Healed for me.
Okay, so it's Powell, Kennard, Healed for me. So sorry, buddy, but you just didn't finish in the top two for either of us. Catch you again later in the week.
Cheers.